Okay, so for our next topic, we are going to be talking about All Saints' Day. So this past week, November 1st was Wednesday. It is the celebration of All Saints' Day. And if you're trying to also think, well, what about Halloween? Halloween started out as All Hallows Eve. So just like you have Christmas Eve before Christmas, you had a time before All Saints' Day. And it was known as All Hallows Eve, which then got shortened into Halloween. Anyways, All Saints' Day is a celebration of all the saints. In the Catholic Church particularly is one of the main traditions that follows this holiday. They have lots of people that they venerate, and so all of them have their own feast days and celebrations. And at some point, the Catholic Church decided, let's just kind of condense it all into one holiday where we can just celebrate all the saints, and there's saints to particular different areas. So one area of the world may celebrate slightly different than another area, but it is a celebration of these important people that have gone before.
And one of the things that, it only takes us a few seconds to throw out history, to not learn about things and to say, oh, we live in a world that's highly secular now. We don't need to learn about saints in the past. Or we may say, well, we're a Protestant, we're a Nazarene, we're a insert denomination here. And the whole thing with saints doesn't matter to us. It takes us a few seconds to dismiss this, but it takes a lot of time for us to learn to appreciate things and to spend some time learning why we're at where we are in the world right now, what has brought us to this point in time and space. And learning about saints is something really important. Even getting down to the core concept of even what a saint is something that's really important, because a lot of this stuff really has shaped who we are. Even the tradition of Halloween being the eve of it, which has sort of become bigger than All Saints' Day in our culture. But understanding this and understanding the role of saints is something which is really important. It's easy to dismiss that. A lot of times people hear the word saint and they associate it, this is high church language. This doesn't be practically relevant in our life. But we really do need to sit down and learn what a lot of this stuff means.
Is there a place for sainthood in the Protestant church? And if there is, where would it be?
All right, well, to answer that, we have to kind of first come to an understanding of what a saint is, or who a saint is. So predominantly, if you're hearing this, you might be thinking, well, that's really Catholic. So I'll talk just a little bit about that. So the Catholic Church, what they do is they establish these rules for who is considered a saint. And in that, they've kind of formed some different structures, and there's people who are venerated or remembered as these saints. However, if we look really at what the word means, it basically just means holy person. And if we understand holy, it is someone who is being transformed more and more into the image of God. And so this idea of being different, of being set apart, sanctified for this purpose. And what is this purpose? And that is to be like Christ.
And here's the thing. There's really become two issues with this. One, the word saint is actually quite simple. It's like Amanda said, it's someone who is actualized as being Christ-like. Somebody who's actually living Christ-like, they're definitionally a saint. A holy person is a saint. And it's something which in and of itself isn't that big of a deal, but the problem is, and this gets to the second issue, is really related to the first issue. It's something which is quite simple, though not a lot of people can necessarily do that, but at the same time it is possible. But the other issue is where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line in saying someone is a saint and someone is not a saint? And this is really where we get where we're at in history. People have been really reluctant to say people are saints who have been, and then they want to overuse the term and then say everybody's a saint just because they're upright. And that's really, I think, where the Catholic Church got to the place where it's at now, is they wanted to clarify not everything in the world is saintly behavior, but these particular things are saints. And in that process, it's become something which has been elevated to a point where it's kind of lost its practical meaning. I think there is a role for bringing it back down to the practical, down-to-earth understanding of the world around us and saying, look, if you're living Christ-like and people are sincerely living Christ-like and they're actually getting to that behavior which matches Christ, well, that is what being a saint is all about.
I still feel like the Catholic Church went a little too far with that.
So we can look back into church history and we can see some corruption that has happened with some of its traditions. Also that happened this past Tuesday was the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation, which I know you guys did a section on earlier in the week. And we see that Martin Luther had some issues with the church, and because of that, not only in his Reformation, but also the Catholic Church reforming within themselves, kind of looked and saw, where have we taken these practices too far? We can also look in our world today, and we see where Catholicism has mixed with other religions, like in the Caribbean with voodoo, where the idea of saints has really gone kind of beyond its original intention, and I think even its right intention. So there are times where we kind of have to say, okay, this is a little bit outside of orthodoxy, out of, kind of right thought. But there is still some importance of looking at the people who have gone before us, whether they are from the Catholic tradition, Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, but the people who have followed God and have led us these amazing examples of what it means to be holy.
And I think there really is a place for that in the Protestant church, for us to be able to say, we value these people, we value their works, and it's something that we need to remember, we need to emulate, we need to have good role models in society, and actually having saints and being able to value people in the past and realizing that it's not just something that's so far away from us we can't interact with it, but having good role models is something which I think is important, and the role of the saint is something which unmistakably can be doing that. On All Saints' Day is the time we set aside, we say we're going to remember the saints who come before us. There's something where we can emulate and remember people and take that and apply it to our lives. And like Amanda said, there are times when it gets taken to its extremes. You see that with again, sometimes when it condenses with other ideas in the world, like when you get the traditions and voodoo and things which all mix in there, it goes to some sort of bad end. And typically in our world, the pathological conclusion of things will win if people aren't disciplined. And I think that's really what's happened with the idea of sainthood, is there is a bad conclusion of this taken to its extreme, and that's pretty much all we remember about it. We don't necessarily have the discipline to use it in practice and doing it in a healthy way. If we're going to do it, it seems to be taken to a far off extreme, which is just so far away, it misses its original purpose.
It seems so different than what we might expect.
So, and also for us to kind of keep in mind when we're talking about saints is also our view of history. It can be very easy for us to segment history as just kind of there and then, and occasionally we'll bring it into our world today and say, okay, well, A caused B, which caused C. But in celebrating saints, we get a chance to participate in a great mystery, and that history somehow comes alive even with us today. Earlier when we were talking about this, I talked about and mentioned communion. It is in celebrating the sacrifice of our Christ that we share it not only with the people in the particular time and space in which we are doing it, but we also celebrate with all those who have gone before and all those who will come after us. And in the kingdom, we find this amazing mystery that time and space no longer gets to dictate how we participate and who we get to participate with. And so even though it's, like I said, it's a great mystery, I can't explain it to the end. I can't tell you how it works. And as someone who's not super familiar with Catholicism, I couldn't tell you how they think of it. But I can tell you to an extent, saints and learning from them can be a great practice of the church, regardless of our tradition, because it calls us to think more than just ourselves in this particular time, in this particular spot, but as the church universal and who we can learn from.
And a big part of that is proximity. We do tend to think of history being something in the past that's kind of closed, and when people have gone before us, we can't interact with them anymore. And even people who haven't come to be in the world yet, we think of these being really detached from us. But the thing about All Saints' Day, and this is really where the connection comes to the idea of graves and the dead, and people setting up tribute to people in the past, is that we can actually interact in proximity with people who have come before us. We can spend some time in the saints, just understanding their lives, celebrating their lives, saying we want to be like these people. We're going to learn from the past. We're going to spend the time and energy to understand the value of things which have come before us. It takes a few seconds to dismiss all of history, to say they're before us. We enjoy the fun of Halloween, so we're not going to care about All Saints' Day. But it does take dedication to say we're going to value people, we're going to value the things that people have done in the past and learn from it, and realize that this can be relevant to us today. And that's one of the beautiful things about All Saints' Day, is it can take us to be in close proximity to interact with the saints, to learn from it, and become better people here and now. And on that, we'll be back in a moment.